whatever.
Should we just tie up?
You guys gonna harvest or should I hop in? Anyone need yellows?
If you want to hop in, I can.
Cool.
I can stack. Definitely not going to take up as much space in the boats.
If you want to talk about sustainable seafood, you really have to talk about bivalves. You have to talk about these filter feeding organisms that are really, really low on the food chain. We really believe that these shellfish represent one of the most sustainable food choices that you can make, on the planet, right? All foods being equal. They're pretty amazing. Bivalves, like oysters and clams and mussels, are unfed. They make their living filtering out microscopic algae, phytoplankton, and they're converting those smallest of primary production units into this incredibly nutrient-dense animal protein, which has many of the same nutritional qualities that we associate with salmon, omegas, and things like that. Put them out into the ocean ecosystem. We require a clean, healthy ecosystem, which puts us in more of a stewardship role. While they're in the water, they're providing these incredible ecosystem services, right? They're filtering water to the tune of 20 to 40 gallons per oyster per day. Well, there's millions of oysters being farmed. That's a lot of water cleaning service. They become aggregators for other life.
Yeah, and it's like I always look at the boat too. You can always tell, like, you see the little ecosystem on the floor now. You're like, man, it is a little ecosystem in each one of these little bags. There's a lot of eelgrass and stuff around here. We try to stay away from all that, you know. Yeah. Especially it's endangered and stuff. We want it to come back. Exactly. This year we saw a whole bunch of branchies come back this year, so I was pretty excited to see that. The year before I barely saw any of them, and then this year this whole place was full of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rate of change that we're seeing in terms of global climate change, we probably are going to have to deploy every smart trick we can to help accelerate the adaptation of the things that we grow to eat.
This
bay is extremely unique. There's no other bay in California that has the clean bill of health from a disease history standpoint. Our original bay of operation has an oyster virus called OSHV1 that has potential to kill about 50% of our crop every year. There's other parts of the world that have micro variants of this disease that kill 99% of oyster crops. If something like that is imported to this bay, there's no shipping seed out of this bay anymore. So this opportunity that we have to send oysters to, everywhere on the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, would go away. If you damage that, it takes out a linchpin for the entire industry. We in the oyster industry started to see the effects of specifically ocean acidification. Larval shellfish are the first place where you start to see that, minute change in pH start to affect something at a very beginning stage, life cycle stage.
What I've experienced is algae blooms. They clog oysters' gills and kill them. If algae blooms out in the ocean, if they're getting more intense and bigger and coming in, it's really scary. And I think we've witnessed a little bit of that.
What we're talking about here is producing food out of an environment that's absolutely dependent on water quality. What is everybody doing that's going to impact that water quality? It has to be good enough to basically meet drinking water standards. I am concerned because I've seen just that little change makes an impact. What do we do? Because this is a really important thing. This is existential.
All right, so we'll step into the footbath and then through into the hatchery. So this is the hatchery proper. This is where we grow all the oysters. This first tank here is our egg incubation tank. So we'll take fertilized oyster eggs, add them into that tank. The eggs will sink to the bottom. And then when the oysters hatch out of the eggs, they'll kind of swim up to the surface and kind of flow into our first larval tanks here. Yeah, so between these two tanks, there's probably about 100 million animals. What Nolan's working on right now is screening the oysters. So we got to separate the fast-growing oysters from the slow-growing oysters. Otherwise, the big oysters will kind of outcompete them for the same amount of algae. So we frequently go through, screen them by size, separate them by size. And these are getting close to the size that they're ready to make that transition into the raw water. So here in the hatchery, it's really important to give them, the best chance possible to make that transition. Because in here, it's kind of a spa. They're getting, premium food. They're getting nice warm temperatures. The ocean acidification is buffered against. But at some point, they got to make that transition out into the natural world. So it's kind of our role to get them to a size big enough to make that transition, and also make sure they have enough fat reserves to make that transition.
Here we have all 5 species that we grow in Tomales Bay. Our Pacific, Crassostrea jagus, or now it's Magellana jagus, I guess. Bellons, the European oyster, Crassostrea edulis, the European flat. Atlantics, Crassostrea virginica. Our native Olympia oyster. We got some Kumamotos, and that's all 5 of them. It's pretty crazy that this animal is likely older than this one.
Up until 150 years ago, if you ate oysters on the West Coast, you were eating the native Australurida, which is commonly called the Olympia oyster. There are shell mounds and village sites that help us understand through carbon-14 dating and through Native American storytelling and history that was the oyster that was nourishing humans in this landscape for thousands of years.
We're working with Cal Poly and Sea Grant to increase the native oyster presence in the bay. They have a bunch of little oysters growing very slowly out on our farm. But it's been so cool because Over the last few years, we've had a lot of major mortality events happen in the bay, but those oysters were planted a few years ago now, and they've just survived everything. Like, I think almost 100%. We haven't sold a single one, and we probably won't for a long time. But if we can get their population to grow, maybe eventually.
We're a very important industry, I think, in California to perpetuate local seafood, and people want to know where their food's coming from. And I think that through that, people have taken it upon themselves to ask the right questions when they come to our farm, and not just like, how much is this? It's like, hey, how do you grow this? Where do you grow it? You know, more about the whole story. We depend on the cleanliness of this bay, the water quality. Nobody cares more about water quality than us, because when we ship you an oyster, we're shipping you a sample of Morro Bay's water, so we care that that water's clean.
Oysters have a reputation nowadays as being like a high-end food. Why?
I think a dream would be, one, more native oysters, and two, just more oysters in general that are affordable, and that it like becomes less of like this kind of niche like experience to go eat oysters, but that oysters are more of like almost a staple. That would be awesome. But I don't know if that is a attainable goal or not.
You guys bringing in granola bars?
I did.
Got one.
Yeah?
What, GB?
Yeah.
Think you can catch it?
Heck yeah, can you throw it? I can
You'll
come
have to
get
swim
it.
if I don't get you.
I can come get it too. Nice. Money.
Okay,
I'm
I'm impressed. I am impressed.
Jeez, what does he do to this thing?
It's been my waders for about maybe a week and a half.
We need food. We need good quality food, and we need it to not tear the planet up, right? And this is a place where we can really potentially do a pretty good job of growing great food and actually promoting a healthy ecosystem. And that's my story, Emily, and I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna stick with that story.